Hello all! Today we're going to look at the history behind a rhyme you may well know from the movie Shrek, when the gingerbread man is tortured by Lord Farquaad. Do you know the Muffin Man? We'll explore if there's a dark and sinister meaning about a murder in old London town. What exactly is a Muffin Man, and what was it like to live on Drury Lane? And as a little game, see if you can spot what all the Muffin Men in this video have in common, and I'll tell you the answer later. The rhyme goes as follows. Do you know the Muffin Man, the Muffin Man, the Muffin Man? Do you know the Muffin Man who lives on Drury Lane? Yes, I know the Muffin Man, the Muffin Man, the Muffin Man. Yes, I know the Muffin Man who lives on Drury Lane. So let's explore the meaning of the rhyme. If you search on Google or YouTube for the meaning of the Muffin Man, a strange and dark story emerges. Apparently the rhyme is designed as a warning to children living in and around the West End of London to avoid the Muffin Man. In this telling, the Muffin Man was actually a real person, Frederick Thomas Linwood, who lived in Drury Lane and between 1589 and 1598 was a predatory child murderer, who also on the side killed 7 rival bakers, all with a large sharpened spoon apparently. Now I'm as intrigued as the next sad YouTuber by stories which link nursery rhymes to real-world events. However, it does bug me a little when stories end up on websites and videos with no historical evidence to back them up. There were no murders, there was no Frederick Thomas Linwood. The whole thing appears to have been made up as a joke and posted on the satirical website Uncyclopedia in 2009, and then taken up by other media outlets who decided to go for clickbait rather than research the source of the story. So, now I've got that off my chest, what do we actually know about the rhyme? According to the research in the singing game by Iona and Peter Opie, the rhyme can be traced to at least the 1820s, when it's found in a manuscript held at the Bodleian Library in Oxford. However, it seems to have been recited some time prior to this. In a book called Life High and Low, which is a series of miscellaneous songs and anecdotes published a year earlier than the book in Oxford, the dandy Muffin Man makes an appearance. It seems to have been a rhyme sung in music halls and taverns and published as a Grub Street ballad. Grub Street was a centre for chapbook publishing in London in the 18th century. It was full of hack writers, ironically the kind of people who would make up dark histories about nursery rhymes without any evidence. There are various later versions of the Muffin Man where the lane changes to Crumpet Lane or Dorset Lane, and in a Dutch version the muffins are changed to mussels, but the premise remains the same, a question and response game about whether we know the man, which apparently we do. But what exactly was a Muffin Man, and what would his life have been like living on Drury Lane in the 19th century? Well, a Muffin Man was just one of around 30,000 street traders and costermongers who sold their wares on the streets of Victorian London. While a costermonger sold their goods from a handcart, the 500 or so muffin men used a basket, often balanced on their head. They would buy the muffins from a local bakery and then wrap them up in flannel to keep them warm. These were English muffins and crumpets, which are more dense and savoury than the American muffin, and need to be toasted and buttered before eating. This meant for the most part they were sold door to door in the more well-to-do parts of the city, and according to one interview with a Muffin Man quoted in Henry Mayhew's book on the London Poor published in 1851, the cost of butter was half the battle in selling muffins. A boy selling muffins observed that the best days were rainy days, when stay-at-home wives who didn't want to go out and couldn't spare their servant leaving the house would buy the muffins for their husband when they returned from work. Good-sized muffins cost a halfpenny. Crumpets were sold 4 for a penny. One thing I didn't know before researching this video was that muffins were only sold from late October through to the spring, so the Muffin Man became associated with cold, wintry days. No doubt, come the spring, he would sell another seasonal good on the streets. And here's the answer to the question I asked at the start of the video. You can spot a Muffin Man by the small handbell he carried. Amidst the various sounds of the other street vendors, the Muffin Man rang his bell to mark his arrival. Indeed, the ringing of the bell of the Muffin Man seems to have been loved and hated in equal measure. The Houses of Parliament outlawed the ringing of the bell in the 1840s, but this was largely ignored. By 1892, there was a further police act, and Muffin Men were being summoned to court to pay fines for making a noise and disturbing the peace. In this example, the defendant was fined 2 shillings and 6pence. The sound of the Muffin Man was so embedded in popular culture in Britain that Conservative Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli suggested that the London season would be much improved if Parliament closed down at the first note of the nightingale in April, MPs left for their country estates, and only returned to town for the first note of the muffin bell. The Muffin Man in the rhyme lives on Drury Lane, so let's explore that. Today, this is the heart of London's theatre district, and Drury Lane is home to the Theatre Royal. The name of the lane can be traced to Sir Robert Drury, a barrister at the time of Henry VIII, who built a mansion called Drury House. This has long gone. It was replaced by the very grand Craven House, which itself has now been demolished. By the time we trace the rhyme to the early 1800s, Drury Lane was one of the most squalid slums in London, and there's some speculation that because of this the rhyme is really about a ragamuffin, an urchin living on the streets. But I'm not convinced. A muffin man was a profession everyone was aware of, and while they were certainly poor, they were far from the bottom of the social hierarchy. So the Muffin Man was not a child murderer, but a central part of the street life of winter days in Victorian Britain. So that's the story of the Muffin Man who lived on Drury Lane. We don't know who he was married to, but if you enjoyed this video, please do consider subscribing. Bye for now.